Sai here! Well, about 2 years ago, I made that colorful cockatoo bird for my little cousin in Texas. And at the same time, I was cutting another cockatoo using white and yellow wood. And so I cut them at the same time, but then I just stopped working on the white one and I finished up the other one for my little cousin. So that's been about 2 years ago now. I decided I should probably get to it and finish it up, especially since I lost one piece and I had to recut it, and then I lost another piece and I had to recut it. So I was like, okay, before I end up losing more and more pieces and I end up cutting this whole bird out again, let's just finish it up and get it done. I started with the wing. I cut out a piece of scrap plywood so that I could double stick tape the wing to it. This is a sanding shim. That way I can sand all of the wing pieces together and give them more of a consistent flow. Plus, it's really quick, but it's also tricky since some pieces can catch on the sander and fly off to the floor. I am using 100 grit on the pneumatic drum sander. This white wood is aspen and the sawdust has a weird feathery feel to it. I guess that's appropriate for a bird, but anyway, it's also very clingy and kind of soft, more so than other sawdust that I've dealt with, it seems to me. Anyway, it makes it pretty messy. Next was the 220 grit on the flex drum sander. I went over all of the pieces, sanding away any 100 grit marks and smoothing all of the pieces. Then I used a piece of 220 grit hand sandpaper. I like to roll it up and I sanded anywhere the flex drum couldn't reach. I usually end up hand sanding some on each piece. Then I used a little Dremel-like tool to do some shaping of the claws that I couldn't get to with the larger sander. I found this tool at a garage sale for $3, and what a deal. I used a speed click mandrel and it makes using those little sanding bands or sanding cylinders super easy. I have links to most everything that I use in my Amazon store, not this thing that I got at the garage sale, but other things. But the link is in the description box if you want to go check out the stuff I use. Then I used a mechanical pencil to outline the cockatoo onto the backer. I like to use a mechanical pencil because the lead is so small, and the sides way down there by the lead are plastic, so I usually don't get any markings on the project while I trace around it. Then took all of the pieces off of the backer and put Old Masters polygel onto each piece, trying to avoid the bottom of the pieces where they will be glued. After a few minutes, I would wipe them till they felt dry. I purposely didn't use the pickling white gel on the aspen because I like to say my pieces are all natural wood color. I like the pickling white, but then I have to explain why the white is so white, and that I use pickling gel, and all that stuff, and I will use it again, but I just didn't want to use it for this project. And I was happy to be getting this project finished after so long. Then I used a red pen and made a cut line just inside of the trace line of the backer. And I cut that out on the Hegner skull saw with a number 5 modified geometry blade, and that's just because that was the blade that was in there already. Then I sanded any sharp or fuzzy areas of the backer. Okay, it's another morning and yay! It's time to glue it onto the backer, but I'm going to put a verse on the backer first with my laser. The verse I picked had nothing to do with birds. I put on there Revelation 14:12 and it says, "Here is the endurance of the set-apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yeshua." I love this verse. The entire context of what this verse is about isn't captured in this one verse, but this one verse by itself does identify who the set-apart ones are. They are the ones who guard the commands of Elohim, meaning those who obey the commands of God Almighty, and have the belief of Yeshua, which is Jesus' name in the original language. So it's the ones who believe and obey, which is pretty important to understand in my opinion. Next, I assembled all of the pieces, and I used the pattern to make it easier. Then I used a black Sharpie and I blackened the edges of the backer. And I moved all of the pieces onto the backer. And started gluing it to the backer. I am using Titebond Quick and Thick. I removed the chest piece and glued that in place first. This is my locking piece. Then I let that set up for a while, and in about 10 minutes it was dry enough that the chest piece was nice and solid. Now I could glue the neighboring pieces nice and tight next to that locked piece, and things won't drift. I glued some below the chest, and beside the chest, then above the chest, and went around like that until all of the pieces were glued in place. Then I added some Krylon triple thick to the eye and to the beak to give it some extra glossy shine. I like to spray some onto something and then use a small brush to apply it to the areas. Okay, I'm gonna finish it up by putting a D-hook on it, I'm hoping. And how I determine how it's gonna hang is I just hold it up with a finger and say, okay, if it was on a hook, it would look pretty good, just like that. So that means right there. So I'm gonna mark it right there. Make sure that's good, okay. Then let's check it out one more time. Okay, yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. And the drill bit is to the right length. And I will just, there we go. Now I will put it on. Okay, let's see if it hangs correctly. I think that looks fine. Yay, I think it looks fine. Can you see it? It's hard to see with this wood here. Anywho, yay, it's done! Woohoo! And like I said, I didn't put the pickling white on the aspen, and so it's not as white as it could be, but I think it's white enough against the yellow to look like it's white. And then with the branch and the dark woods and stuff. Which, this was ebony and holly on the inside of that eye, and then the aspen, yellow heart, and the claws are walnut, yellow heart again. And this wood, don't know what it is. So that's kind of a bummer, but anywho, yay, it's done! So thanks for joining me, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Woo!